Yeah, I want to do Facebook mentions, but I've got a Droid, and Droids don't let you do the Facebook Live thing.
I don't know what that means.
Well, you'll see it because everyone's starting to do it. I'm pretty much it's just live video you're streaming right from your Facebook page.
I'm sure Facebook will get their app right for Androids.
Yeah, but it's been forever. All right, here we go. Are you bringing us in? You bring us in.
All right.
Okay, here we go. And like I said, we'll try to stay on time because we got in a little trouble last time. So we'll shoot for 13 here. Here we go.
Yep.
You're listening to The Weigh In with Mike Parsons.
What are you cackling at, fatty? Too much pie, that's your problem.
And Fred Slow.
Anybody want a peanut?
On demand 24/7 at weighинradio.com.
Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie.
Good morning, St. Louis. Welcome back to The Weigh In. I, of course, am Fred Slow. Alongside me, my longtime partner in crime, Mike Parsons.
Hey.
You're listening to The Weigh In either on weighinradio.com, 590 The Fan, or 590thefan.com. We got the moniker straight, Mike. We're 590 is back in St. Louis.
Thank God, Fred, because I'm not sure if you and the listener noticed, but I have a hell of a lot of time. I had a hell of a time remembering all those letters and numbers.
The city is abuzz with talk of 590 returning, as 590 had been defunct or extinct or gone for some time, but we're back. The lineup's better than ever throughout the week. The weekend lineup is still extraordinary. So we appreciate everyone tuning in on Playoff Football Sunday and tomorrow National Championship today. But the real big announcement, Mike, I am no longer the most hated man in St. Louis.
It's about time. You're still the most hated man in Wood River, though, right?
It's not even close. As far as Metro East goes, No one can stand me. But yeah, absolutely. In St. Louis, the man of the hour, it's not Stan the man, it's Ban Stan, because Stan Kroenke he's pulled the rug out underneath the St. Louis Rams in St. Louis, and he has just said all the worst things out the door, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he's burning a bridge, but I would say that I think that's too light of a term. I think that he's nuked the bridge, and he's gone number 1, 2, and 3 on the ashes.
Stan Kroenke, named after Enos Slaughter and Stan the Man Musial, two of the most famed St. Louis sports icons in the history of St. Louis Cardinals baseball, is in my opinion a St. Louis Benedict Arnold. He is from here, went to Mizzou, and he is stealing my pro football team.
Well, and talking about the Cardinals, Fred, the reason that Stan the man Kroenke wants to leave St. Louis so badly is because he sees you as a 2-franchise town, a 1-horse town, a town that is not economically viable. And he submitted the paperwork, the application, to move the Rams to Los Angeles. And of course, I'm not reading all, 20 pages or 29 pages? So here are the highlights, Fred. This is what Stan Kroenke, the owner of your St. Louis Rams, has to say about you. St. Louis lags and will continue to lag far behind in the economic drivers that are necessary for sustained success of an NFL franchise. Compared to all other U.S. cities, St. Louis is struggling. He goes blah, 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 gives a bunch of numbers. Then he says, any NFL club that signs on to this new stadium proposal in St. Louis will be well on the road to financial ruin, and the league will be harmed. So Stan Kroenke is not only lobbying to pack up and leave town, he's telling all other franchises to stay out of St. Louis.
He is the worst human being on the face of the entire planet, Mike. He's condemned an entire city. So just put that into perspective. He says an entire city is not good enough to support 3 sports teams. But the Wall Street Journal just released a story that says St. Louis is the best sports city in the entire world. The Wall Street Journal is not from St. Louis. It's not sporting news. This is not a slighted article. This is the Wall Street Journal. You know what? We don't have bad fans here, Stan Kroenke. We have smart fans. And those smart fans aren't celebrating your haven't had a winning season since 2003, finished 7-9 every single year, signed Jeff Fisher to do absolutely nothing every single year. You know, we gave up less sacks than any team in the NFL this year, Mike. We gave up less sacks but we can't win a game. Like we're terrible. We're not going to support you, Stan. And then you're going to say these things about me.
Fred,
and by me, I mean sports fan.
Fred, what does the Wall Street Journal know? Because in this proposal, Stan Kroenke posted a Twitter poll.
Oh, well,
made
okay.
up of 2,000 people that said that these random 2,000 people who follow this random ESPN writer, who, by the way, he's pissed that he's being put in the middle of this. Those 2,000 people said they would like to see the Rams move to Los Angeles over the Raiders and the Chargers. So there you go, Fred.
Yeah, hey, and that's great. If he's hitting yoga instructors down in LA that are saying that, that doesn't matter to me, Stan. What matters to me is your stupid master's degree from stupid University of Missouri, because I hate University of Missouri now ever since this thing that kind of got blown over. But you are the worst person on the face of the earth, and I don't want to say anything about the Rams because I really care about them. But the question is, Mike, will I care about them in LA? And the answer is no, because I hate Stan Kroenke. I hate everything about him. He's a big jerk, and this is not articulate, but it's the truth. I want him to know that he's a jerk. But he doesn't come to St. Louis, so he won't listen to this.
It's okay, Fred, because sometimes when words fail, emotion and passion takes over. Look, it's quite apparent that what matters to you doesn't matter to Stan Kroenke. And I've been asking this question ever since we started here on 590 The Fan. If the Rams are in fact unable to move to LA and somehow they stay in St. Louis, which I don't know how they can now after this, are you still going to support the Rams? Because, Fred, you say it all the time. It's not Todd Gurley's fault. It's not Nick Foles' fault. It's might be Case Keenum's fault, but probably not.
Obviously, it's partially Case Keenum's fault, yes.
Yeah, actually, this all started after Case Keenum
got
under center.
Still, Case Keenum was on the team. That's the truth.
Where's Brenda Warner when you need it? She'd be able to straighten Kroenke's ass out. But Fred, I ask you.
No, I hear you, Mike. Mike, I hear you. I got three options, man. My Rams come back to me, and I have to accept them. I lose my Rams, and I have no one. Or I lose my Rams, and I get either the Chargers or the Raiders in 2 years. Those are really my three options. And right now, I really only want option 3. Like that's how pissed I am. That's how
Well, you know what? And Fred, if Stan Kroenke hates owning an NFL franchise in St. Louis so badly, sell the team. If you can't move to LA, sell the team to someone who gives a crap about the fans who support, your $1 billion lifestyle and come out and keep your team in business.
The owners had a meeting. So there's the owners meeting and then there's the league meeting, right? They're two different things, except they happen in NFL official buildings. So the owners met last week and the owners said, all right, you three guys, tell us what you want to do. And then the owner said, well, this is what we want to do. The Chargers and the Raiders they said, hey, we're screwed. If we can't leave, we're screwed. Just everything's screwed. And Stan Kroenke said, if you don't let me leave, I'm going to burn the bridge so bad they're going to push me out of town. That's what he said at this meeting. So come Houston next Tuesday and Wednesday, they're going to have to vote on if the Rams or the Chargers or the Raiders can switch cities. And it takes a majority vote. It's like 75% or something. So you have to have 26 out of 30 or 24 out of 30 or something. Are they going to get that? I don't have that answer. It's too early to say, but it didn't look good for the city of St. Louis during the meeting when Stan Kroenke's pointing out that the stadium that we proposed as a city cost an extra $100 million than we originally estimated, but we had to put that up there because it would be an upper echelon facility, because if you don't have an upper echelon facility, then no one's going to want to come play football in your city anyways. Oh, we are in such a bad spot, and we're not going to come out of this with an NFL team.
Fred, I'm not much of a businessman, as you know. So, I have no idea about negotiating tactics and leverage, but I would imagine that saying, allow us to move to LA, or I'm going to piss off the fans of St. Louis so badly that no one will want to come and play football here. No one's going to want to put their franchise here. That doesn't sound very effective. It reminds me of the term, we don't negotiate with terrorists. And that's what Stan Kroenke sounds like.
Here's some things Stan Kroenke said this week. He said, I hate toasted ravioli. He said, I hate the arch. He said, I hate the St. Louis Cardinals. He said, I hate that Ted Drews is custard and not ice cream. He said he started naming everything that you could possibly hate about the city. He makes no sense to me, man. He doesn't even come here. You know who doesn't come to the game? Rams fans. You know who else doesn't come to the game? Stan Kroenke. Figure it out, Stan.
Well, Fred, I don't have as much knowledge of the history of the Rams in St. Louis as you do. When did Stan Kroenke take the team over? Has he been the owner since they moved from LA the first time, or did he take over later on?
Yeah, he had partial ownership in '95 whenever the Rams came over. So it was Georgia Fontieri, and she owned the team, got it from her husband. Anyway, so he owns a partial ownership. And by the way, Mike, in 1995, he said St. Louis is a football town, and St. Louis will always have a football team, which, by the way, your pants are on fire, Stan. But then, yeah, in 2002, whenever Georgia Fontieri passed away, or there was, not 2002, 2007. Anyways, there was an ownership switch, and a guy named Shad Khan tried to buy the team, and he was from Springfield, Illinois, which is the University of Illinois. But he got strong-armed out by Kroenke and his Walmart money because he's married to the Waltons. And then Shad Khan had to go down to Jacksonville, which is fine. Good luck to him. But then Kroenke was like, well, I'm just going to keep this team in St. Louis forever. By the way, I'm a big fat liar.
Well, let me ask you this, Fred. Okay. Say Stan Kroenke packs up and leaves town, which, to me, good riddance. If you hate us that much, get the hell out of here. We'll try to find a football team that wants us.
Sure.
But if that happens and you're without a football team for, a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, will you get a modicum of satisfaction that you would get from having an NFL team watching Stan Kroenke's franchise fail in LA? Because I don't know if Stan Kroenke remembers this, but it was just a little over 20 years ago that LA had 2 football teams, and both of those football teams moved out of the city.
LA has USC, which is ran like a pro organization. They have a football base. They have fans that want to be fans of football, and I wish no ill will to them. They deserve an NFL team. Do they deserve 2? I don't necessarily know.
Well, and that's the thing, Fred. I'm sorry to interrupt, but in 1994, if 2 NFL teams didn't work back then, what makes them think 2 NFL teams is going to work right now?
Well, it's going to shine bright for a little bit, right? They're going to get 10, 15 years of it when it's shiny and new, and you can kind of, I don't know, marry your quarterback off to one of the Kardashians or something. Right. But then after that, yeah, you might be right. It might be old hat. You know how LA's trendy. LA trends out. Like if it's not cool to go to Lakers games anymore, maybe it's cool to go to Clippers games. There's so many other options in Los Angeles. This happened when I lived in Washington. Opening day here in St. Louis is a big deal. Gas stations shut down, man. It's opening day. When I lived in Washington, opening day is not a big deal because it's Seattle and there's a ton of stuff going on. By the way, fans shut down gas stations in St. Louis, Stan. We're big fans, okay? We like well-run organizations. We like teams that are profitable. And by the way, Stan Kroenke's never met Francis Slay. He's never met the mayor of St. Louis. He owns a pro team in our town. Doesn't even know the mayor. Figure it out, dude.
Yeah, I think Stan Kroenke is really digging himself a hole with not just the NFL, but the fans that he's going to be left to face after the NFL doesn't let him relocate to LA. It's sort of like, have you ever seen the movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves?
Yes. Obviously, I've seen every Keanu Reeves movie, obviously.
For those who haven't seen it, Keanu Reeves is this demon hunter, and he goes around exorcising demons.
I think it's a biography.
It's a Keanu Reeves biopic.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
That's why it hasn't been anything. He's been demon hunting. Well, anyway, so Constantine tried to kill himself as a kid, so when he dies, he's going to go to hell, and when he dies, he's going to be down an HE double hockey stick with the same demons that he exorcised out of people, and it's going to be very bad for him. That's what's going to happen in St. Louis if Stan Kroenke isn't able to move his team to L.A.
St. Louis, Governor Nixon, Mayor Slay said, we're going to put $1.1 billion into the hardest part of the city to develop, and we're going to put the St. Louis Rams there, and we're going to rejuvenize the city, and it's going to be because of your team. And if you don't want to be the guy that saves the city that you think is so terrible, then you're not a guy I necessarily want to cheer for. You're not a guy I'm a fan of. If I lose you, and I don't think we'll lose anyone this year, Mike, by the way. I don't think a single team's moving. I think all three teams are staying where they're at for this season, but I think two of these teams are going to be approved to go to LA. Would I be surprised if St. Louis moves forward with their stadium plan and then the odd man out ends up coming to St. Louis in 2017? Would not be surprised at all. I think that's a very viable option. But if the Rams are here next year, and I think they will be, they will have zero support from this fan base, and then everything that Stan Kroenke is saying is going to look factual, and then won't we be wearing egg on our face?
Wow. That is some critical thinking. And if that's the case, then Stan Kroenke is an evil sociopathic genius.
That goes without saying. You're listening to The Weigh In on 590 The Fan.
Cool. Okay, so we went 15 there, so we'll do 13, 13, and like 11.
God, I just hate him so much, dude.
I know, but
I'm fucking mad.
I know. I thought he when I was reading that too, because I've actually been the one who's been harder on him recently.
Well, I didn't know he was going to go all fucking red coat on me and say,
right, because last week you thought that
I thought we had a shot.
Yeah, the city outsmarted Stan the Man.
I for sure thought that. And then, what do you do whenever you don't have like a rebuttal? You go to name calling, and that's what I saw.
Yeah, right, exactly.
My bad. Okay.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna cheer it up. We're gonna reminisce about our childhood.
I just love Ken Griffey.
Here we go. 3, 2. I'll bring it in.
Now, back to the weigh-in.
I've been on the radio quite a bit, but I want to do it like as a part-time thing. Not to make money, but because I love hearing myself on the radio.
WeighInRadio.com.
All right, Fred. Happy thoughts. It's the Weigh In 590, the fan, 590thefan.com, WeighInRadio.com. I think this is the first time since we started doing the show together, Fred, where we actually agree on an athlete.
Oh, good, because this one should be unanimous across the board.
You love your Kobe. I think Kobe's making a joke and a spectacle out of his final season. You love yourself some Jeets. I think that he's probably an a-hole in disguise. But there's one guy who made the Hall of Fame earlier this week, nearly unanimously. One Ken Griffey Jr., who, well, we're that age, Fred. We grew up, when we were kids, everyone's favorite baseball player was either Frank Thomas or Ken Griffey Jr. And Ozzie Smith.
Yeah, Ozzie Smith was huge here in St. Louis. That's a given. But yeah, keep going.
Well, I'm not from the area.
Right.
All we had was Bobby Higginson. God's sakes.
No one gets the Higginson reference.
No, exactly. People in Detroit don't get the Higginson reference. That's how bad it was. But yeah, Fred, Ken Griffey Jr., when we were kids playing wiffle ball between the houses of the neighborhood, he was the batting stance that everybody imitated. And I've been having a lot of fun watching all the highlights of Ken Griffey Jr. because obviously it takes you back to a simpler time where
that sweet swing. Ooh.
That sweet swing. Watching him play baseball was almost like watching a ballet of skill. And I think that when Ken Griffey Jr. was at his best, he was the closest thing to a perfect baseball player that we're ever going to see.
There's something to be said about a guy who plays with a smile, right? There's something to be said about a guy who's out there and just loving the game. We make fun of Brett Favre all the time, right? Brett Favre was just a kid out there.
That's because Brett Favre's a D-bag.
But Ken Griffey Jr. literally was just a kid out there. Came up in the majors. He was only 19 years old. He's playing with his dad in Seattle. His dad, who he followed around the clubhouse for about 1 million years in Cincinnati, growing up with guys like Pete Rose, growing up with guys like Johnny Bench, his father, Ken Griffey Sr. He gets to Seattle. He's made it to the show, and he makes immediate impact. He plays with his dad. He's in the same lineup. Is that not the crazy? You're starting the story with that. The story only gets better from there.
Right, and he's like 1 million times better than his dad. Not a knock on his dad.
No.
He's 1 million times better than anyone else in the league.
God, he was so good, and the way he played the game, man. And let me just get the numbers out of the way. I'm sure you've heard them. There's 440 Hall of Fame votes this year. Ken Griffey Jr. receives 437, which is like 99.3% or something.
Who are the three buzzkills who didn't vote for him?
These D-bags. Okay, I'm not sure what agenda you're pushing or why you don't think that Ken Griffey Jr. is a Hall of Famer, but your vote maybe should be analyzed, revoked, taken away, given to me.
Well, here's the thing. There's some old stick in the muds who say no one should be putting the Hall of Fame on their first ballot. Or you get the one guy who votes against the rest of the herd, and he gets a little run in the national media because he'll write an op-ed, why I didn't vote for Ken Griffey Jr., and then shows like ours and social media will pick it up and talk about it and get the guy's name out there in the press for his 15 minutes of fame.
If you want to send a vote to, I don't know, David Eckstein, that's weird. That's weird to me. I would never do that. But if you don't send a vote to Ken Griffey Jr., that's insulting to me. There are a couple of guys, and we talk all the time, Hall of Very Good, and we're going to get into that discussion. But the Hall of Fame, is there anyone more famous in that era than Ken Griffey Jr.?
No, there's not. I mean, he was all over the place. He was the biggest star in baseball in a market like Seattle, which great town, but it's not New York. It's not L.A. Both cities that Mike Piazza played in, which I find Mike Piazza to be very deserving as well of his Hall of Fame vote, if anything, for the Pert Plus commercials and that glorious, glorious hair. But, yeah, I mean, Ken Griffey Jr., he played in Seattle. He played in Cincinnati. Those aren't really glamour places, and those are places that nowadays, when athletes are trying to build their brand, those are places that they don't want to go.
Right. There's a thing about Ken Griffey Jr., it's whenever you can transcend the game, right? And I was talking about this the other day on social media. Whenever you can take the opportunity you have, which is the Seattle Mariners in the early 90s, which is not the best baseball town around. In fact, I think they had AstroTurf even back then because it rained every single day.
And they were inside, too, I believe. The Kingdom.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Kingdom. So you become Rookie of the Year, right? And then after you become Rookie of the Year and play with your dad, and then you get in the home run derby and you start wearing your hat backwards, and you're an all-star for the first 10 consecutive, no, not your rookie year. You're the all-star for the first 9 out of 10 seasons of your career. Are you following me? You are on Wheaties boxes. You're on The Simpsons, which is the biggest TV show in the whole world. You are everything that is important we talk about the lexicon all the time, in pop culture. You are everything that is impacting the world. You are famous. You are a Hall of Famer at that point, and he's only 10 seasons in, man. His numbers were through the roof.
Well, Fred, it's like there's a party in my mouth, and everyone's invited.
He's the best. I grew up in St. Louis. I watched Albert Pujols play a long time. I watched Mark McGwire play. I watched Ozzie Smith play. I was at Busch Stadium when Ken Griffey Jr. hit 500. He is the best player I've ever seen in person, undoubtedly, in my mind. I saw Barry Bonds. He's the best. It's not even close. The guy could fly. He could play center field lockdown. And then when we got a little older and all he could do was DH, imagine if the dude had stayed healthy. Imagine if he could play 20 years as if he was 27.
Right. I mean, it seemed like his entire time with the Reds, he was injured. And I think that's even more amazing. And I think that I honestly, Fred, I think the time he spent injured helped him to become a nearly unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer, because it shows, or it's evidence against the fact that he probably was not using performance enhancing drugs like everybody else, right? And that seems to be every baseball writer's deal breaker, at least the older guys. But I want to take you back, Fred. 1998, Tigers Stadium. The Detroit Tigers versus the Seattle Mariners. A 14-year-old Mike Parsons is sitting with his mom and dad about mid-lower deck along the right field line. I was a chubby kid, so I was probably double fisting hot dogs and a gallon of cola. Luis Gonzalez comes up to bat. He hits a moonshot to right center field. Ken Griffey Jr., the closest I've ever seen a human being to achieving flight happen in front of my eyes, where it seems like he climbs up the fence and makes a snow cone catch, bringing it back in. And Fred, at my day job, I work with a guy who used to broadcast Tigers games, and I was talking to him about him. I said, "You remember that catch in 1998? Best catch he's ever saw." And this guy has been broadcasting just about every sport for 40 years. Best catch he ever saw. And in Tiger Stadium, there wasn't a disappointed "aw" coming from the crowd. There was a standing ovation because it was the most incredible thing that any of us had ever seen.
10 gold gloves, Mike. You don't accidentally win 10 gold gloves in center field. The guy that played opposite him in the National League, Jimmy Edmonds, 8 gold gloves at that same time. By the way, only received 5 votes for Hall of Fame. He's out.
Yeah, I'm really surprised about that.
I don't have the answer, and I'm a big Jim Edmonds mark, obviously. I'll tell you right now, the best catch I've ever seen is Jim Edmonds versus Cincinnati Reds, and there's no doubt in my mind. And the best one I haven't seen, but I've seen on video, is the one he made when he was playing for the Angels.
Yeah, I don't know Jim Edmonds' offensive numbers off the top of my head, and I'm not saying that his fielding should have gotten him into the Hall of Fame, but his fielding should have kept him on the ballot longer than he's been on.
Well, and it was just the 1 year. He was eligible this year, and now he's gone. And to me, a little bit, that's a shame because I'm a big Jim Edmonds guy, but I grew up watching Jim Edmonds. Ken Griffey Jr., there was that 3-year period there from like 96, 97, 98. No one on the planet could touch him. 50 bombs, close to 50 bombs, 140 RBs, 140 RBs, 135 RBs. The kid could play. And then, like we said, that home run derby where he turned his hat around. The second he turned his hat around and smiled after every dinger he hit, Seattle Mariners hats are still selling because of that.
And I wonder, Griffey played alongside Michael Jordan for a lot of his career, timeline wise. I'm wondering now, in this post Michael Jordan era, where it seems like, James Harden has a shoe deal. What kind of endorsements, what kind of a cultural figure he might have become if he just played 10 years later?
To take that 96 campaign that Griffey had and put it in 2006, I think you're absolutely right. The kind of attention he should have garnered, I'm not the guy who plays the race card, and you know that. But as an African-American athlete in baseball, he would have been the hottest commodity on the entire planet if he would just been 10 years later in the game.
Right. Now, let's look at some of the people who haven't got in. And the two big names that come up every year, they're inching up there. Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. Now, I think I've made it quite clear my thoughts, my feelings on the subject. When you don't have the all-time home run leader in the Hall of Fame, and when you don't have the best pitcher from a decade and a half of the game, something's wrong. And I understand it, performance-enhancing drugs, yada, yada, yada. But, my feeling is that performance-enhancing drugs were so rampant back then, and they're probably still so rampant, that in a weird, perverse way, it kind of evens out the playing field. Mark McGwire got, he only got 12.3% of the vote. And my feeling is that Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, and Mark McGwire would have put up Hall of Fame numbers before performance-enhancing drugs. It's not like Fred, it's not like you and I could shoot up some steroids, go out and hit 700 home runs or play as dominant as Roger Clemens. Now, Rafael Palmeiro, that's a guy I want to put in because he wouldn't have had those numbers without performance-enhancing drugs. Same with Jason Giambi. But Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, those guys would have all been Hall of Famers if it weren't for the performance-enhancing drugs.
And so is the opposite side of that argument some guys that would, obviously, Sammy Sosa would not have, right? Jim Thome, we don't necessarily know. I think Alex Rodriguez, who's still playing, but when his time comes, he's a guy who would have got in without performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah, right.
It's going to absolutely what's he have? 654 home runs or something like that. His 654, which is obviously over 100 behind Barry Bonds, but he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame just like Barry Bonds because he cheats, man. Like he's a cheater. We talked about Pete Rose 2 weeks ago. You cannot cheat this game because the Hall of Fame it's twisted.
Well, I think a lot of it is revenge of the nerds. You look at a guy like Jack Morris, who played for the Tigers. He played for the Twins, and he won a couple World Series, all the while being one of the most dominant pitchers of the 80s. There's a big sentiment out there that Jack Morris and his time has come and gone on the ballot. There's a lot of people out there who think that Jack Morris isn't in the Hall of Fame just because he wasn't warm and fuzzy to the writers. See, to me, it seems like a lot of times, not all writers, but some of the more holier-than-thou sanctimonious writers, this is kind of their chance to flex their muscle. This is the leverage, and they're going to use it to get back at the guys who didn't treat them well while they were playing.
It's impossible for me to think, because to be a Hall of Fame voter, it's 10 years covering a team. That's all it takes. So you become a 10-year beat writer for a specific sports team, and I would find it very difficult to believe that you are personal and familiar with every single player that becomes eligible for Major League Baseball. So if you're a guy like Morris who's got this reputation, you have to go out and earn that reputation. So I'm not saying the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame is for just top shelf character guys. I'm not saying that because that's obviously not true.
Right. But no one would be in it.
Yeah, but if you are attempting to garner the reputation of jerk, well, yeah, I mean, you're probably going to get that pretty easily.
And yeah, you don't have to be a jerk to the writers, but I think if you want to treat your profession with integrity, you're not going to hold that against a guy when it comes time to vote him into the Hall of Fame.
You would hope that people were professional enough for that to be true. You would hope that.
We had to take a break, Fred. It is the Weigh In, 590 The Fan, 590thefan.com, and weightinradio.com. We'll be right back. I almost said talk STL.
That's all right. We're growing out of it.
All right, so we'll have to go 11 and 11 because we went a little long in that.
Bad. We're awful, man.
That's okay. All right,
I had a point I wanted to make, and I totally forgot about it. Fuck.
Oh, crap. I'm sorry.
It was about Pat Tillman in the NFL Hall of Fame. Oh.
Do you want to...
He's not in. Pat Tillman's not in the Hall of Fame. He's got like a little shrine thing, but he doesn't have like... He's one of the most famous football players ever.
Why don't you come back with that?
Okay.
And then I want to run this Jeets story by you, and I'm actually going to stick up for Jeets here. So here we go. We'll continue our Hall of Fame, and then maybe we'll do some Paul DePodesta stuff, some Johnny Manziel stuff. We'll work it out. We've only got 11 minutes on these two segments.
I'm ready.
Here we go. 3, 2. You're bringing it back, right?
That's fine.
Now, back to the weigh-in.
These guys are like bad stand-up comics that you can't heckle.
Weightinradio.com.
Welcome back to the Weigh-In, segment 3. What I like to call the 3-hole, Mike.
The 3-way.
I, of course, am still Fred Slow. Alongside me, my longtime friend, Mike Parsons.
And I don't even know who I am anymore.
We got through the Hall of Fame talk so quick, and I just stuttered over myself. And I wanted to make a point, and that point is there's no real definition of Hall of Fame, right? And I want to get away from baseball for a second, but I want to go to football.
Okay.
The Hall of Fame, which jokingly has been called the Hall of Very Good, I think it should not necessarily just have the best players in all of the game. I think it should have the most impactful players in all the game. And I'm talking fame as in celebrity and likeness and just general knowledge of a person. And let's go to the NFL. In the NFL, a guy who does have he has like a shrine at the Hall of Fame, but he's not enshrined in the Hall of Fame, and that's Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman played for the Arizona Cardinals and he played for Arizona State, and he quit the NFL to go fight for his country in Afghanistan, and unfortunately was killed in action. He is unarguably the most famous veteran and NFL player in the history of the NFL. I don't understand why a guy like Pat Tillman is not in the NFL Hall of Fame, unless the Hall of Fame is not actually about famous people. It's about guys with just really good numbers.
You know, Fred, that is a very interesting angle that I've never thought of before. Last segment we were talking about how, you shouldn't exclude someone from the Hall of Fame just because of their character, but maybe every year you enshrine someone based on their character, right? Because how long did Pat Tillman play in the NFL? Not very long, right?
No, not. Let's see. So he would have 25. He joined the Army Rangers, so he would have been in the NFL for 3 seasons, maybe 4.
Right. So obviously, 3 seasons in the NFL, no matter how good you are, you're not going to get in as a player.
Hey, ask Earl Davis.
Well, yeah. Well, he played more than 3 seasons, but he only had maybe 3 good seasons. Well,
right.
He's not in the Hall of Fame yet either.
No, he's not.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Terrell Owens. Oh yeah, Terrell Davis, the running back from the Broncos.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he's in the. I'd have to look that.
That's what I'm saying. Like but he had 3 good seasons. It's going to be the same conversation with Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner had like 3 or 4 good seasons.
Right. But back to Pat Tillman. I mean, the reason why he only played 3 seasons in the NFL was very noble. So yeah, you know what? Maybe coaches are inducted.
Pat Tillman played 4 seasons in the NFL, Mike.
Right. So obviously he's not going to get in as a player, but I mean, you get executives who are enshrined. You get people from all over the game. Yeah. I mean, why don't you give a character award? Because the reason, I mean, think about it. And I remember when this happened too. It was not long after 9/11 that he felt the call to go serve his country.
Yeah, well, he actually left the 2001 season. So he played the first 12 games of the season. I'm not saying he feigned an injury. I don't know if that is. But he came up where he couldn't play for the rest of the season. He said, well, with that said, I'm actually going to go become an Army Ranger. I'm going to do what he thought was best in his heart. And maybe you don't put him in as a player, Mike. Maybe you're right. But you put him in as a contributor to the game? Do you put him in as a what? Yeah.
Well, and you know what, Fred? If they put him in as a player, I wouldn't be upset because of the circumstances that he left the game. And I remember when it happened, I mean, it blew everyone's mind. It kind of blows your mind now because he could have stayed here. He could have made a whole lot of money, and he could be still living in the lap of luxury or whatever. But he decided to make. I would say it's more of a sacrifice because he had his ticket written. He had the American dream. He had all the benefits of being an American, and he still felt the call to go fight for his country. That's really interesting, Fred, because if Pat Tillman showed up on the ballot as a player, do you think anyone would want to be the guy who didn't vote for Pat Tillman to get in the Hall of Fame?
When did Pat Tillman die? 2004. So it's been 12 years since his death. I don't know if the question is why should he be in the Hall of Fame? I don't know if that's the question. Maybe the question is why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? Maybe we've been doing something wrong for 10 years now.
Well, you say he's got a what? He's got a shrine in the Hall of Fame, but he's not necessarily in the Hall. What's the difference?
Well, the shrine it's his jersey. It's like his military uniform, and then he won. I think he won like the Ben Dardick Award or something in college, some for best safety, and those things are all in the Hall of Fame in Canton, and that's nice. I mean, I'm not trying to knock that at all, but there's a difference in having a shrine and being enshrined. Put his bust in there, make it official. Whenever you start talking about Hall of Fame players, put another tick on that strong safety list and make sure Pat Tillman's name's on there. And if it's not as a player, like we're saying, if it's a special contributor or ambassador to the game or whatever moniker you want to give it, good. But I think there's a different level. It's like Christian Laettner in the NBA. Christian Laettner is not really in the NBA Hall of Fame, but he was on the Dream Team.
Right.
Like there's a gigantic difference.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess you're right because, Pete Rose has a whole bunch of regalia in the Hall of Fame, but obviously he's banned from being enshrined in the Hall of Fame. That's really interesting, Fred. I mean, I think what would happen is that some people would have to get together and agree that, okay, well, it's not your typical route to the Hall of Fame, but, he led a Hall of Fame life, I guess, and he died a Hall of Fame death, as morbid as that sounds. So, yeah, you know what? I if he got in as a player, I don't see a whole lot of people who would be upset or disagree with that.
Well, and like I said, for the sake of this conversation, I think the bigger picture is, who are we to judge a guy if we're judging solely on production and whatever Hall of Fame you want to talk about, hockey, NBA, I don't care. If we're judging solely on production, it's a different what it is than what we actually have. And I don't think we're judging solely on production. We're judging like on
more like
right?
more like contribution to the game, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's why I think Ken Griffey, who wasn't unanimous, probably should have been unanimous, because he wasn't just a good ball player on the field. He was a good ambassador for baseball. He made baseball better. And I think Pat Tillman is the exact same story with the NFL. The NFL is stronger because Pat Tillman was once associated with it, period.
Right, because, I mean, Pat Tillman didn't do what he did to give the NFL good PR, but it gave the NFL great PR just because you have a strong character guy like this.
Yeah, I agree completely. And like I said, I know that was a little off the cuff, and I didn't mean to spark anything weird, but
that's, like I said, that is something that I've never thought of before, but it's worth thinking about.
I know what famous means, and people can be famous, for a lot of different reasons. And specifically, if you're famous for the right reasons, and obviously my core set of values are not the same as yours and not the same as the listener, but if you are famous for the right reasons, you deserve to be recognized for those. And Pat Tillman's one of those guys. And I think Mark McGwire, for instance, we're talking about baseball. In 1998, Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa saved baseball. If you don't believe that, then you don't really know the history of the game. And Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because of what they did in that single season that has led to the last 18 seasons or whatever.
And Fred,
go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, and that is the foundation of my frustration with baseball writers getting all sanctimonious about, I will never vote for a guy who used performance-enhancing drugs. Because you said it. That season that Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, they were both chasing Roger Maris, people weren't watching baseball. People were so turned off by baseball by the strike of, was the strike in 93, 94?
94. Yeah, they canceled the World Series. They canceled the most important game in the world.
So, I mean, baseball was down there, okay? All of a sudden, there's two guys chasing history. Everybody was watching it. Everybody. And if you're a Hall of Fame voter, Fred, like you said, the criteria is you have to cover a team for 10 years. Then, you know, if it took Jose Canseco's book to break the news that everyone was using performance-enhancing drugs since the 90s, you either look the other way because you know it was good for business, or you're a bad journalist and you're not observant at all.
Go ahead. I was going to say, Mike, when I say steroids saves baseball, I don't say it like upsettingly steroids save baseball or disappointingly to me steroids save. I'm not there to judge the morals of it. What I am there to do is recognize what happened. And without steroids in the 90s, baseball as we know it wouldn't be what is probably the number 2 sport in the country. It would be more of a hockey/soccer kind of thing, because you would have lost all your athletes. And obviously it relies heavily on Latino players in Latin America and all those Pan American islands. But without those guys, the game is not where it is today, and I think we are foolish to ignore that.
You're telling me, Fred, that a bunt down the third baseline followed by a hit and run sacrifice out at first, that wasn't going to bring people back during the summer of 98?
Hey, Mike, you go up there, you get a double, all right? That'll be a big hit this inning. I'm going to have I got that speedy guy behind you. I'm having him lay down a bunt to third. You make sure you're off with the pitch, though, because I want you to make sure to get 2 to third. And then from there, we're going to sack fly you home, bro. We're going to be up 1-0.
Yes! Yes, the double shift! The double infield shift! I love this strategy.
I can't believe they're bringing in is that a fifth infielder? Oh, they know something's on here. They're going to make a play at home. I love baseball because I'm that guy who likes the strategy, and I'm that guy who's intense in my viewing of the game. But to everyday fan or to my nephew who has a smartphone, he does not care about how smart baseball is. He wants dingers.
Right. It's like referencing the Simpsons again, that episode where Mark McGuire came crashing down on the Fox satellite. He says, I can tell you the awful, awful truth, or I can hit a few dingers. Everyone goes, dingers! That's who we are. That's who we are watching baseball. But Fred, I think there's one guy who has a chance of being a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'm going to tell you who it is through gritted teeth next segment. It's the Weigh In, 590 The Fan and 590thefan.com. Sorry, Fred. I didn't mean to cut you off by making a point.
You're good. I was going to take it full circle saying Griffey and McGuire were both on The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah. My bad. Okay.
You're good.
Okay. And, of course, the guy I'm going to say might be a first ballot Hall of Famer is your boy. All right.
In baseball, Albert Pujols?
No, Jeets.
Oh, yeah. He will for sure be.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, even the 2017 class coming up has some shots at it.
Well, I mean like unanimous, though.
Yeah.
2017, let's see. 2017, Pudge Rodriguez is in that. Vlad Guerrero's in that one. There's
Danny
another.
Ramirez.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right, but it won't be any of them. Pudge Rodriguez, if we're really talking about it, Johnny Bench, Yogi Berra.
Oh, yeah.
Pudge Rodriguez.
Pudge Rodriguez, he'll be first ballot. He just won't be unanimous.
Right. Well, in my opinion, he might be the third best catcher of all time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back when Piazza was playing, every year for the starting catcher for the AL All-Star team, Gold Glove winner, Pudge Rodriguez.
Right. 13-time Gold Glove winner.
Every year for the NL All-Star team, starting catcher, Silver Slugger, Mike Piazza.
And then on the bench, Jorge Posada.
Yeah. Right. Whoever the hell was playing for the Yankees.
I'm ready if
All
you
right.
are.
Okay, here we go. So we're going to go 9 minutes with this, so it's going to be shorter.
Now,
This is
back
we're
to the
going
Weigh-In.
What's that?
This is it, right? We're going home after this?
Yeah, it's the last one.
Okay.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Now, back to the Weigh-In.
I wash myself with a rag on a stick.
WeighInRadio.com.
I guess we're on a Simpsons kick this week, Fred. It is the Weigh-In 590 KFNS. No, 590 The Fan and 590thefan.com. KFNS, that's FCC stuff, man.
Yeah, no one cared about that.
No one cares about that's nerd stuff. All right, so we've been talking Hall of Fame just about all show. Ken Griffey Jr., 3 votes away from being a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'm actually surprised that there hasn't been a unanimous Hall of Famer when you look back at guys like Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle.
Tom Seaver only missed it by 5 votes, Mike. 5 lonely votes.
Which is weird. When you think of guys that got the most votes for the Hall of Fame, and maybe there were less Hall of Fame voters back when Ruth and Mantle and all the guys were playing. Tom Seaver, hell of a career, but you don't think of him as being the guy who would get the most votes for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
But there is one player I have in mind, and I hate to admit it because not a big fan of this guy. I just don't like his stupid face and how he's, everything just comes up this guy. Everything comes up Jeter. But I think that the best chance that we have right now to a player being a unanimous induction into the Hall of Fame is Derek Jeter.
Number two. Derek Jeter.
The captain. And Fred, but Fred, there may be some controversy brewing. I need to watch this Al Jazeera. I almost said this Al Qaeda. Might as well be Al Qaeda. They're taking down all of our heroes. This Al Jazeera report on doping, because I guess in this documentary there is a guy named Jason Riley.
Right.
He is a partner of Charles Sly. He's that guy who worked at that pharmacy. They got undercover tape of him talking about sending HGH to Peyton Manning's wife.
Such a good villain name.
Charles Sly.
Charlie Sly.
That is a good, either that or a porn star name. You
If
can be
my
both.
name's Charlie Sly, I'm either the world's most successful stand-up comedian or the world's most venomous villain.
Or I have a kickstand for a third leg. One of those. Anyway, Charles Sly and Jason Riley, they're business partners. Jason Riley, he runs a treatment center in Florida.
Right.
And he was on tape being interviewed for this, and they're talking about performance enhancing drugs. He says the results were staggering. Suddenly, Derek Jeter had replaced Dick Clark as America's oldest teenager.
This, you're talking about his age 35 season, 2009, when he had just a resurgence. He went from geriatric to something clever that rhymes with geriatric.
Right. Geriatric to Jurassic game. I don't know. You know what we're talking about.
Yeah, he was excellent.
Yeah. He went from geriatric to good again. Yeah. And you know what? This was, this was like one line in the documentary, and I don't even know what context it was in. I don't know if they were talking about supplements. I don't know if they were just talking about Jason Riley's work as a trainer. But pretty much the story was about how this kind of seems like a non-story, and I have to agree. It seems like a non-story, but I thought I'd bring it up to you just to poke you in the eye a little bit.
It's such a non-story because whenever these kind of stories come out, and if there is any validity to them, if there's a little bit of truth to them, the guys come out and publicly say, the accused come out and say, "Hey, it's not true. I'm cool."
Right.
And that's happening here. So, and I know Peyton Manning, he's not addressing it yet. That's fine. He's in the playoffs. He's got to win some games. But Derek Jeter says, no, that's not true. It's 100% not true. But you know who's really saying that? Ryan Howard and Ryan Zimmerman. Ryan Howard, St. Louis native, plays for the Phillies. Ryan Zimmerman plays for the Nationals. They're suing Al Jazeera. They believe it's so not true that they're not afraid to be cross-examined in a court of law to prove that it's not true. And that's where this whole thing falls apart for me. Sly's already recanted his remarks. Zimmerman and Howard are on the offensive. These guys don't want that kind of shame in their life because especially, well, both of the guys, neither of them really are Hall of Famers, but if they play long enough, they're going to have a legacy, and they don't want that legacy to be tarnished. And they're willing to, in a court of law, go and argue to dispute this. And they're going to be put up against some serious questioning, but they believe that they'll be able to escape it because it's so unfactual.
Well, but on the other side of the coin, Al Jazeera also has a reputation, and they're not going to put this stuff out there unless they check with multiple sources. I'm not exactly sure if suing Al Jazeera, if their end game is to prove that they're innocent. I really don't, because there's a lot of people who do a lot of unscrupulous stuff, lying through their teeth, and they take it to a court of law. And, winning money or clearing their reputation isn't always the end game. I mean, I think maybe and this is just me theorizing, if you did indeed get caught taking performance enhancing drugs and you're named in an Al Jazeera documentary, I think maybe your strategy is to take them to court to put that doubt in people's minds, because you think maybe besides their sources, I mean, there's no way to really prove that these guys were on performance enhancing drugs unless they're still on them. So, if you took them 5 years ago, it's out of your system. I don't think there's a way to medically prove that that you took them. So I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to create doubt in people's minds. You can deny it for the rest of your life and say, look, I am so vehemently against these accusations that I took him to court.
A la Roger Clemens, who has now been facing public ridicule from Roy Halladay, who says, he doesn't deserve to be in because of steroid use. But Roger Clemens has battled everything in court and come out unscathed every single time. Yeah, I know what you're saying, Mike. If I'm not a cheater and somebody calls me a cheater, I think I'm personally the kind of guy who just like water off a duck's back. It doesn't bother me. But if I am a cheater and I know I'm a cheater, maybe I take the offensive to, I don't know, to save their reputation. I guess no one knows for certain except for Derek Jeter and whatever God he sold his soul to be the best, human being on the face of the earth.
Right. Because if you're a high profile athlete, and I'm not really talking about Jeter right now, I'm talking like Ryan Howard or Zimmerman. They could probably afford such good legal counsel that even if they did it, their legal counsel can spin it in a way that puts doubt in people's mind. But I'm with you, Fred. Water off the back, because it seems like this might go away. It happened with enough, at least when it comes to Peyton Manning, it happened with enough time left in the season that it's not going to be like Deflategate, where you have nothing to talk about for the next 5-6 months. So it's going to be the topic of conversation. This happened right before the end of the season and before the playoffs. So by the time the playoffs are over, as long as Peyton Manning leaves it alone, it doesn't seem like Al Jazeera is trying to do anything but stand by their sources. It's not like they're doing they're doing further investigations to try to nail these guys. This might go away.
Speaking of it being over, because I know we're at the end of the show, Mike, there are currently 8 open positions in the NFL, and you have to choose one. Tampa Bay, New York Giants, Cleveland Browns, San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles, Miami Dolphins, Tennessee Titans. Which team looks like the most opportune to you and a new coach?
If I'm a coach, and I want my best chance to win with the best roster, I'm going with Odell Beckham and Eli Manning in New York.
The real quick before we go, Mike, Jim Caldwell, I know there's not really been a decision one way or the other. Is he in or is he out in Detroit?
God, that's tough because right now Detroit does not have a general manager. Ownership came out in support of Jim Caldwell. And except for their terrible start beginning of the season, the Lions have had a good run under Jim Caldwell. I mean, they had a terrible streak where they were 1-6, 1-5, but they went, what they go 10-4 last, 10-5 last season, 6-2. It really is a. What's that?
Yeah, 6-2 in the second half, Mike.
Yeah, in the second half. So you know what? It's really a crapshoot. It really is. My gut is that he will be back for at least one more season.
Hey, real quick before we go, St. Louis Ambush hosts the Syracuse Knights. That's Friday at 11 a.m., but that's going to be only on the app, guys. So 590 The Fan. Make sure you get the app. It's available. Everything's streaming online.
Or go down and say hello, Fred Slow. Tell him Mike Parsons sent you.
Free tickets for the Ambush game at the Family Arena Friday at 11.
And the weigh-in is free. On demand 24/7 at weighинradio.com. 590 The Fan every Sunday morning, 590thefan.com. Be back next week. Bye. And we're clear.
A little over there, sorry.
What's that?
Sorry, we went over there. That's my fault.
That's okay. I don't think
Didn't ask that football question.
Oh, the Caldwell thing?
No, well, yeah, that was my bad.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like all but a foregone conclusion he was going to be gone until, well,